Hello.
Hi, we are here today to wrap up our mini challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I'm wondering how many out there did minis.
I know. Please tell us if you did, because I would love to. I'm actually teaching an online class about minis, and I would love feedback from people who have been working with minis. How has it changed what you're doing? Has it, let you try some things you might not normally try?
Yeah.
Little techniques, blending of techniques.
Yeah.
It's like a really fun thing to do.
Absolutely. And that class, it's an online class.
It's an online class. We'll plug it.
And we will link to it.
Yes, it's through In the Studio, and there are lots of great classes. I'm not the only one teaching.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, Haley's taught for them
12
before.
or 13 teachers.
Yes.
In 2025 is February 13th at 1 p.m.
Yes, February 13th
I'll
at
be
1
there.
p.m. Oh,
So
Haley will be there.
Yeah, I'm going to be a student. Are you kidding me?
I know. I love being a student. That's my favorite.
So you also sign up too. But today we did want to talk about
We want to
some of the things we learned about.
Yes, because this challenge actually started we had a challenge before, working small, working large. That started my obsession with the minis.
Yes.
And then we did a mini rug hooking challenge.
Yes.
So,
Which, specific to rug hooking. This project was specific to rug hooking, but we have been working mini off and on, both of us, for quite a while, so we understand the benefits of mini.
Yeah,
which is some of the things like working fast, getting out a lot of ideas.
Yes, simplifying. We were talking about this recently. You really have to simplify when you're working small. And then that may turn into something different as you move into a bigger format, but it gives you kind of a framework to start with.
Yeah.
And it definitely, I'm like losing my train of thought, but
No.
Yeah.
I'm following you.
Yes.
You have to
It informs you. That's the word.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we need like a whole blooper thing of me going, thinking of the word. It informs you, like your decisions later on.
For sure.
Yes.
So what we're doing today, since we worked so small, and by so small we mean like 2 by 2 inches up to max 4 by 4 inches, we figured we would just put our faces up here and we would put up pictures of the work we're talking about. So it's really hard to film very small things, and we want to give you guys the most details.
You'll be seeing them big instead
You'll be
of small.
seeing what we're referring to, but we're looking at them on the table. So maybe I'll go first and talk about some of the things I learned, and then you can close us out, since you're kind of like the authority on.
Well, I'm not the authority.
I think you are.
I am maybe the obsessed. Would be a better word.
Yes. So I'm looking at, again, if we're looking down a lot, it's because we're looking at them physically.
Yes, you'll be seeing them on the screen, so you'll hear us talking about what you are seeing.
Yeah. So I did a series of 6 miniature hooked rugs, and I did everything from 2 by 2 to I think 3. I think my biggest one ended up being like 3.5 inches. When we showed the previous video, Liz was so good about getting out the ruler and making sure I didn't do that. I just drew some small squares. So I started with my biggest ones first, meaning the 3.5 inch ones, and then worked my way to small. I don't really know if that benefited me in either,
I kind of wish I had done the reverse, because I did the same.
You did the same, big to small.
I started it with the 4 by 4 for rug hooking, and I wish I would have started smaller and gone bigger.
What and this is the first one I did here, what I found out really, really quickly was that I needed a great selection of size of material I hooked with. So I started with some super bulky yarns, like in this area, and the areas I'm pointing to are like the kind of like a mid-gray. There's like a maroon in this piece, and some really chunky pieces of rug hooking. And then I was like, I need to really diversify what I'm hooking with. So I picked out some smaller yarns. I also picked out some yarns that had a little bit of shine to them, meaning like the white area to the left and this little like hangy area, these sort of shiny yarns that I just started carrying in my shop. And that was really helpful. The other thing that helped me diversify sort of the mark within my piece was using a couple pieces of chiffon that had an actual like plaid pattern on them. So that helped sort of break up these bigger, larger areas I was hooking as well. So that's sort of that point of using a lot of different materials, different sizes, a lot of different patterns, because I filled this in about, don't know. I think you were here with me.
Right,
Maybe
I
like
was gonna
45. No, not even.
I
half
thought
hour?
I was going to say half an hour.
Half hour, I
half an
think.
hour.
Because I know when I got down to my little one, my littlest one, I timed myself and it was 13 minutes to
Wow.
fill in a 2x2. So I think it was probably about a half hour. And that's taking things out. Like, so I took, but I also took things out and rehooked.
Yes.
So all my editing and everything was done in about a half hour when we're talking like a 3.5-inch square.
And one thing I'm like, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No, please do.
I'm noticing as I'm looking at yours that I really love in these mini things is I feel like you'll see this as we go through, especially looking at Haley's, playing around with different heights. I feel
That's
like
true.
you really
Good
did play
point.
around with height.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And with width of material.
Yeah.
And
height
like,
too.
yeah.
I didn't even notice that. But
Yeah,
I intentionally pulled some of my loops about a 1/2 inch high to
and
make them
it
stick
looks
out.
great. And I think if it were in a bigger piece, you might not, I don't know, if you would have done that,
I don't
or if
know
it would
if I
be
would
as
have.
impactful
Yeah,
as it is in a
yeah.
small piece.
So after doing this big one here, I moved on to these two kind of mid-size, which are probably about 3 inches.
Yeah.
So I was at 2.5,
2.5
inches.
maybe, yeah.
And when working those ones, I decided to really simplify with like one sort of big clumping of hooking and sort of like on a background. In fact, when you look, down on them, they kind of look like an island, especially since the outside of the piece, kind of this bigger shape framing the clump of hooking is blue. So it sort of looks like an island almost. But that was my way of dealing with such a small format, like the composition of it. How am I going to break down this really small space with hooking? Well, I simplified my shapes. And it really does, because I did one big shape, one color, I think it really reads as like a thing on a background.
A foreground and a background.
Oh, yeah.
An object and a background.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And even though the main shape, or the main kind of clump, the object is lots of different colors and lots of different tones, I think it still just reads that way naturally. So that was my second kind of like idea of solving such a small composition, is totally simplifying, one big shape on a background. And again, and this is one where it's really apparent where I use the heights. It might not be as apparent in photographs, but some of these, especially like the green that's in this piece, is poked really high, and everything else is kind of low. I found white to be really helpful.
I did too. Yes, yes.
Which is interesting. The value structure of the piece. Oh my gosh, it's so rainy outside.
Really, yeah, it's funny.
The extreme between white and black was really, really impactful in these small pieces. You know all about that because you did mini embroidery.
I did mini embroideries in black and white.
Yes.
And then I did carry that. I mean, for some reason, I really love that. I don't want to use jarring, but it's like a really exciting, dynamic composition when you're working small.
I would agree. So leaning on that extreme contrast can really help like unify, or I guess not unify, but like structure the piece so it makes an impact.
Yeah.
And then I've finally going to my smallest pieces that are 2x2. I'm trying to think of like what did I use that I learned. I think I really honed in on the type of palette I wanted.
You use more of a palette, and I think you relied less on value, is what I mean, there's value definitely.
Yeah.
But it's more in the tension between the colors.
Right. So I picked a very specific palette, I think. Where the other one, exactly what you said. The other ones are a little more about value, extremes, lights and darks, whereas these are more colorful. I definitely leaned on using some really small pieces of fabric. Again, the height, really all the things that I was doing in the other ones, except playing a little bit more with, I had an opportunity to really kind of like play with different color palettes than I normally use. So I picked a lot of, like, I'm a big complementary color gal.
Yeah.
So purple, yellow, green and red, and really just leaning on that and playing with it. So that's kind of like one nice thing is 17 minutes. I can do a lot of these different color studies.
You're
which
not
is my
committed.
favorite thing.
You're not committed to this big, huge thing. And you can use scraps from other projects.
Yeah.
It's a great way to like use up pieces.
Oh, bits and bobs, for sure.
And it kind of, you know, if you hold yourself to that, sometimes it forces you to work within certain parameters. Like if you're like, I'm going to only use my little leftovers. This is what I have.
Yeah. Let's see
What
if I
can I
make it
compose
work.
with that and make it work?
Yeah.
I like
and
that.
this one up in the corner here, at least the way we're looking at it right now, this was probably the most challenging one because I think, again, it's bigger than the other ones, or well, than some of the other ones, but it's relying more on color than blacks and whites. And you can see I've taken the liberty of doing some hanging with some of my little pieces to add a little bit more of a sculptural element. So definitely it allowed me to experiment with lots of different things.
Yeah.
The height of my loops, the size of my materials, using different materials I might not use, experimenting with like hanging bits to get more of a sculptural thing, palette, all over the place.
And it is funny because I see, you can't see, we have a huge work, one of the biggest works we've made in a long time on the wall. And I can kind of look at these little things and see the dialogue between the big piece and the small, the minis, which is nice.
All around experience.
Yes, yes. The sculptural quality in particular.
So it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed it, and I can see more mini rug hooking in my future.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's great. Okay, so I did 4 minis because I was obsessed with my embroidered ones. I was still kind of puttering with those. I think the first one I did was my biggest. It was this sort of, I mean, talk about relying on value. There's a lot of contrast here in this one. I can't get the coffee bean out of my...
Oh, gosh. Well, okay. So
I almost feel like if I rotate it, you know, when you look at it different...
I'm trying... Yeah, that's one thing we did, because we did look at these together, and we helped each other out as far as like a little mini critique.
Right.
Where was it that... I think at one point with this piece, you had the whole background pink.
It was a definite, when we were talking about object and background, the whole background was pink. And it did look very much, almost like an insect perched on something.
Which can be interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad thing. But I realized that I was just like sick of working on this, and I kind of like gave up, and I'm like, I'm just going to make all the rest of this pink. And I thought, okay, that wasn't good. And then I went back and I added the white.
The white.
Really and that
helped.
It really needed it. And the other thing is it was a different texture. I can't remember if I've clipped this since then or not. I may have. But yeah, I had some pink yarns that were, one was really a big roving, and then the other one was very, very tiny fingering weight. So I kind of got carried away with that pink, thinking the juxtaposition in the size would be interesting enough, and it wasn't.
The texture.
And I'm so glad I did it on a small piece, not a big piece.
Well, and it just goes to show you again, with these small pieces, the more contrast and the more sort of like punchy piece, the better it is, because they're so small that you need them to make a great impact.
You do.
You know, with contrast.
Yeah, and I really did love the sort of acid. I used the sari material to create
that yellow.
That bright acid yellow, which may not show in the photo as much, but in person it's sort of this acid yellow on a mustard, and it's shiny, and it's more voluminous.
Yep, voluminous.
Voluminous. Than the other parts of the work.
But also your purple is shiny too. It's not, I don't think that's
sari
but
as well.
It is sari.
Yeah, that's sari as well.
So you're getting the, you know, it's not just one spot of sheen.
Right. No. Yes. I always like to have a repeat moment, even if it's not the same color. You know, I repeated that shine.
Yeah.
And then I think up in this upper right hand corner where that little red bit, I think that might be sari actually in this one.
I think there is sari.
I think that's sari too.
if I'm remembering. But yeah.
So okay.
But definitely pushed it into a more of a spatial experience, a more contrasting experience.
Than object and
and background.
Which is where it settled at first. Okay, so that was an abstract, and then we have another really small. This is a 2x2 abstract. I actually like this one a lot better.
I like that one too.
Yeah. I like the, again, I have sari that was really wide and shiny and loopy, and then I have tiny little cotton, really, you know, meant for crochet yarn that's kind of frayed and almost like velvety looking. I like the color story in this.
Yes.
Again, I have, which is so unusual for me, but I'm getting more into it, the black and the white. And then that white, that true white is the thing I'm discovering I'm really liking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, when things are really small, having like the most, you know, contrasting pair of colors, which would be white and black,
Yes.
really helps make it stand out. Yellow to, is that red sari too right above it, or is
Yeah,
that
that's
just,
like a kind of like a magenta, and it had a yeah.
There's a real space here. I feel like the yellow and the red, magenta, that whole corner kind of comes at the viewer, and everything else, even that white that is so bright, it still sits in the background. Just because the texture and the stitch is smaller, it's not shiny. So
Right.
I like it. Like personally, I'm always interested in that kind of tension of like, even though you have something that's a really, really bright color or like a really light value, if you can make that sit back in space while you have something like a dark red come forward at you, I always find that very interesting, that you can kind of do those things. The work, it's what I say of like when the work functions, it's doing something.
And that is a real lesson for me, because I tend to shy away from that exact combo that is receding, because I think it's too aggressive normally, black, white, and red. So that the part that you're mentioning that's going back.
Yeah, right. When but you've tackled it, you've tamed it, because you have that other corner that's coming at you. Very
and I think also having the black underneath the yellow in that corner also really.
Right. What that does, I think, is it unifies it, because there's the dark that's in the top and the upper right hand corner. So by having that black underneath the yellow, it's still all of the same world.
Right.
So that's it's really very, very nice.
And then I went to more recognizable pieces. I did, because I'm also trying to do more of this and for my own thing. I did just sort of a cat perched in a window, which I find to be a little bit boring.
No, it's
but
cute.
It's fine. It is what it is. And it was really this one was, I believe this one was 3x3, maybe 4x4, but it was kind of like, what kind of a story can I tell given this tiny bit of space with an object that is recognizable? Like, I didn't want it to just be a cat, like here's a cat. I wanted it to be like, oh, here's a cat looking outside, looking at something.
Doing something.
Yeah, it's doing something.
Yeah.
So, and that,
figuring out how to use your edges. I think that's one thing with when you are challenging yourself to working small, you only have so much space. So
you do.
How are you going to give us the suggestion of an object or a story with such limit? You have to cut those things down or make them really small. Well, in our case, we kind of have to cut them down, use those edges in a smart way.
Let things go off. You don't have to see the whole thing.
You don't. I mean, we all know that that's a cat. We all know that, there's some sort of foliage in there. We understand it's a window. So, getting away with the least amount is sometimes a really interesting thing.
I do like that, And then the other thing for me on this was dealing with a large mass of a dark color and making that not be oppressive.
Yeah, but you balanced it because, again, I think it's like a tree or a plant outside the window, like in the lower.
Yeah, it's just kind of
it's like an interesting shiny. It's got some texture, like visual texture to it, so it balances out that cat pretty well.
And this was a combo of punch needle and rug hooking.
Yes, which if you look at one of our previous videos, I think it's the one we just posted last week. Were you working on this, or we were talking about, because you had a cat and I had a cat.
Oh yeah, it was. I was working on this. Yes, and I was showing the back showing the difference between the front and the back. So this is like, technically when I'm making it, this is the back, but because I was looking for that loopy side, that's the front.
Yep.
Okay, and then last but not least, I have a piece where I went much more, detailed, and this is what this is.
This just makes me smile.
I do love this little guy. I don't know why it makes me so happy.
Because it's so fun.
It is. It's funny, when I first brought this out, Haley thought it was an abstract. It wasn't done yet.
Yeah, and I couldn't see the face. I just saw two main kind of like spaces on a background, which the tree and the beard.
Yes.
And the rest wasn't done. So I was like, oh, that's very interesting how you just simplified it into two sort of like amorphous shapes.
Blobs on a background.
And then, of course, as she worked on it, it became more apparent. And once I got a good look at it, because I was looking at it from far away.
This one was really fun. I don't know, it just made me smile. And it challenged me. I've been working more on drawing and painting and things like that. So to bring that into, my textile, which I feel like I fairly successfully did with his face and his using
Yeah.
tech. This one is actually a combination of punch needle, rug hooking, and embroidery.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that was a really fun one to do. That was really fun.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't have wanted to put that much effort, nor would I really have wanted to have it be any bigger, because I don't know that I need a big, huge, like hipster Santa Claus staring at me. But
I know, but as like a little piece that you can enjoy.
just a fun little something to make you smile.
Exactly.
That gives you a chance. And for me to do sort of this, I built up layers on his face. I've been looking at more kind of stump work and older ways of using embroidery, where they would build base layer and then add layers on top, making it more sculptural. This gave me a chance to do this really in a very, very tiny way to try that out and combine it with some other techniques.
And talk about like because you're like a multimedia type of person. I'm more just like rug hooking all the time, but Liz does a lot of different things, especially in lots of pieces. Rug hooking, punch needle, and embroidery, and probably lots of other things that I'm missing, but picking the right kind of like stitch for what you need. Like, you wanted to do a detailed face. I think you really achieved that, but like, could you have done that in rug hooking or punching?
Not in this size. I don't think I could have. I could not have. I would have had to make a much larger piece to do it, and I don't think it would have read the same way. This again, we mentioned earlier, talking about height and texture and things. I was able to achieve this big, bushy looking, crazy beard that comes off the face. And I couldn't have done that if I had punched his face or hooked his face.
It wouldn't have been,
because it would all be on the same plane. I guess I could have made his beard.
I mean, you always could, but I think you met the challenge really well and got your point across. Which is like, this is a fun piece. It's two objects.
It's been a while. I know we talked about like working cute. And I never did that challenge, really. You did. She made the cute Halloween stuff. And I still, I hadn't done anything other. Really, this year I've been doing almost all abstract stuff.
You really have. Now that I look at it.
I know. So it was also kind of, I used this as a challenge to bring myself back to doing some more objects that I try to make recognizable. Just a little, illustrative. So, anyway, but I really think I'm loving working small. I think there's a lot of value in it. I think it really, you can set out to learn something like we did, or I know I did with the mini, the black and white value. That's something I've been trying to work on this year. And so I can see it creeping into my work, we have black and white and almost, almost all of these. There's a sense of black and white.
There is, for sure.
So,
for sure.
So that lets you know that even sometimes when you're conscious of something, I'm working on something without realizing it, it creeps into your creative language, I think. So.
Well, this was a great challenge. Like we said, if you have anything to share, you can let us know at email expressivestitch@gmail.com.
Send us photos if you did the challenge. I know a couple of you out there have been in touch with us.
Saying that you're following along.
Working on minis. So we'd love to see that.
And we're looking for more challenge ideas. I think we can come up with some, but we'd love to hear what you want.
I know. We would love to hear what you would like to do, or see, try and stump us too. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be great. But we're heading into the new year, and we are going to have some new challenges.
Yep, ready for some new challenges for sure.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to your class.
Oh, yes.
Minis.
Thank
What's
you.
it called
Thank
again?
you.
Mighty Mini.
The Power of Minis.
The Power of
Minis. I feel like it just should be a Huey Lewis song that goes along with that. Yeah. That's the power of minis. Oh my goodness.
Well,
all right.
you
Thank you for being here once again. We always appreciate it. All right. Goodbye.
Okay, good.